renowned economist Mr. Augustine Peter, sir, the patron of Saphalam 55 plus, Advocate George C. Kapan, sir, President Shashidharan, sir, and members of Saphalam 55 plus Pala. Thank you all. I am Abdullah Khan, Secretary, Saphalam 55 plus Pala. Nowadays, we are discussing on India's economic growth and its leading status among other countries. When we heard the news of India's economic development and more growth, we were happy and we were proud. Now we are very eager to know thoroughly about the achievement of our nation. According to the latest report, India has overtaken the UK to become the world's fifth largest economy and is now behind only the US, China, Japan, and Germany. A decade back, India was ranked 11th among the large economies, while the UK was at the fifth position. Today, we got a renowned person, that is Mr. Augustine Peter, who was in the Indian Economic Service, and he is delivering a talk on India's economy and its growth. On behalf of Saphalam 55 plus Pala, I welcome you, sir, and also I welcome Advocate George C. Kapan, sir, Shashidharan, sir, and all members of Saphalam 55 plus Pala. Thank you. Thank you all.
Good morning, this is Augustine Peter. I was a former student of St.Thomas College Palai during 1975 to 78 and was happy to have been chairman of the college union during that time. So now Mr. Abdullah has requested me to speak a few words about the recent developments in the Indian economy. There have been two major developments in the recent weeks as far as the Indian economy is concerned. The first has been the high GDP growth registered by the Indian economy during the second quarter of 2021. And the growth rate was to the tune of 13.5% year on year in the second quarter of 2022. And this is the most in a year, but it was basically less than the forecast figure of 15.2% by the Reserve Bank of India. We should understand that during the corona time, that is 2020-21, there has been a sharp decline in India's GDP, and there was even decline to the tune of 21% in the period June, July, August 2020. And coming against that background, we should also realize that the Indian economy, the size of the Indian economy is almost same as it was 2 years back, because the economy shrank and now it has come back to the earlier stage. Now, what is the second major development? The news has come that India has overtaken the United Kingdom as the fifth largest economy in the world. What does it mean? Countries are classified as economically strong based on the gross domestic product, GDP. Many of us are aware what is GDP. Without going into the complexities of the terminology GDP at different ways of looking at it, GDP of a country, it can be defined as the total monetary value of the goods and services produced within the borders in a particular year. Normally, it is internationally it will be the 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 calendar year. The average growth rate has been calculated using the geometric mean to obtain a 5-year uh, we will see that in the following table, that is table 1, the situation of countries, the largest economies, 7 economies. First, that is based on GDP at current prices in 2020 and growth rate in 2021. We will look at that, then we will come back to the situation currently. United States with a GDP of US dollar 22.99 trillion dollars, that is at current prices in US dollars. As we know, a trillion is 1,000 billion, and 1,000 and a billion is 1,000 million, and a million is 1,000,000. So United States has been remaining as the largest economy, ranked first, and it has also a per capita income of $69,288. GDP per capita, the ranking of the United States is 7. GDP growth rate in 2021 was 5.68%. GDP growth rate ranking was 65. Now coming to the second largest economy as per GDP at current prices 2020 was PR China, People's Republic of China. 17.70 trillion US dollars and ranked second with 12,556 per capita GDP, and GDP per capita ranking is 58. GDP growth rate in 2021 was around 8.08%, and GDP growth rate ranking 34. Third is Japan, far behind, 4.94 trillion, and Germany 4.22 trillion, and UK 3.19 trillion. And there again you will find UK was till recently, till few weeks back, ranked as 5th and with 3.19 trillion US dollars. Now India was just behind it, 3.17 trillion US dollars. But there is a big contrast between UK and India, for example, when it comes to per capita GDP. UK's per capita GDP is $47,334, while India's is just 2,277 US dollars, ranking 136 among the countries for which information has been compiled by the IMF, World Bank. And now coming to the growth rate, India is much ahead of many other leading countries with 8.95% against China's 8.08%. and India ranks 28th in terms of per GDP growth rate ranking. So that is regarding. Now you will find a close look at this. You will find now where has this change happened? In 2021, that means more than 1 year back, there was for a few days India was ranked higher and got the fifth place compared to UK, but India fell back again to the sixth place. In 2017, France was overtaken by India. France now thereafter continues, even now continues to be the seventh in position. What has prompted the uh, the the, the promotion of India from the sixth position to fifth position and relegation of UK to the sixth position? That is the growth which we have seen of India in the second quarter, which has been very substantial. That is 13.5% in the quarter. We should always realize that a quarterly based comparison to arrive at the ranking may not be very scientific, but at the same time, we all know that India has been and is growing at much faster rate than the United Kingdom, and it's a matter of time that India at any rate will overtake UK. Now who is above us? Germany and Japan. We will come down to the growth rates of these countries in the recent past and the projected. Japan has been hardly growing. You will see that. And Germany has been growing, but not at that pace that, for example, here itself you will find in 2021, Japan has grown 1.62%, Germany 2.78%. Against India is 8 point almost 9%. So this at this rate, it is natural that India will overtake these two countries. By 2030, it is projected that India will overtake Germany to be the third largest economy in the world. Now, coming down to a comparative picture between India and China, because as we have seen, India and China are just moving up the ladder, and it's a matter of time that China will overtake the United States because it's a question of arithmetic. When a country is growing at a faster rate and another country is growing at a slower rate, it's a matter of time, depending on the trajectory, the former country overtakes the latter. Now, China and India are the two most emerging economies in the world. In 2021, China and India are the second and the fifth, or 2022, we can say the fifth largest economies in the world on nominal basis, GDP basis. On a PPP basis, that is purchasing power parity, that is another way of calculation. Even though GDP wise, China and India are lower in ranking, the ability to purchase goods and services on that basis, I am not going into the technicalities of that, then China is already ranked first and India as third, because with the same GDP, because of the lower cost of goods and services in the country, the purchasing power is much higher. Coming back to India-China comparison, 1987, the GDP of both the countries, nominal basis, was almost equal. You will be surprised to know, even in PPP terms, purchasing power parity terms, China was slightly ahead of India in 1990. That's all. But in 2021, where do we stand? For 2022, China's GDP is 5.5, 5.46, 5.5 times higher than that of India. Even on a PPP basis, GDP of China is 2.61x or times of India. China crossed the 1 trillion mark in 1998, and India took another 9 years, that is in 2007, to cross this 1 trillion GDP mark. Both these countries have been neck to neck in GDP per capita terms till almost 1990. It was almost same GDP per capita starting from 1961. As per both the methods, that is the PPP as well as nominal, India was richer than China in 1990. On the other hand, in 2022, China is almost 5.5 or 4 times, as we have already seen. China attains a maximum GDP growth rate of 19.30%, 19.30% in 1970, and a minimum of minus 27.27 in 1961. So, but on the other hand, India has been always moderate. It has reached an all-time high of 9.63% for the whole year. But what we have stated about 13% is for a quarter. So for the whole of year, 9.63% in 1988. That is before the liberalization. That's why we should think, should not underestimate the role of deregulation, which happened in the second part of 1980s under Rajiv Gandhi. That deregulation, where a lot of regulatory barriers, for example, substantial amendment in MRTP Act, which has been diluted, lot of deregulation in licensing. The licensing system was almost overhauled, and then finally the dependence on external debt was a bit of an undoing of the whole process, which culminated in the economic crisis, external financial crisis faced by India. From 1961 to 2019, China grew by more than 10% in 22 years, continuously, more than 22 years, while India never crossed 10% growth in that sense. So there was no continuity. There is the international research shows that any country to evolve from a developing country to a developed country, it has to grow 20 to 25 years continuously at more than 9%, continuously, persistently, which is a feat which has been achieved by the People's Republic of China during that period. Even now, China's growth rate is ahead of that of India. So this is something, some reality which we have to uh, uh, understand. Now coming back to the India's ranking as the fifth largest economy in the world, we should remember that in 2019, India had for a few days, for a quarter maybe, overtook UK to the fifth place. But again, because of the lower growth in India in 2019, 20, 2021, so we slipped back. And now again India has uh, got a uh, got a walkover uh, the United Kingdom. So this is something which we have to celebrate now, because even though per capita income we have a long way to go, because we are $2,000 plus, while other countries, other major economies, their per capita income is in 40,000, $50,000. So this is something which we have to be clear about while being proud of our heritage. Now I am giving a second table, that is some of the fastest growing economies during 2018-22. This is the time when there has been this COVID pandemic and growth had slowed down. So among the largest economies, you see Japan during this 18 to 22 period, Japan hardly grew, it was stagnant. Germany grew by 0.5%, UK just 1%. This was the reason why India overtook UK during this period. And France 1.1%, USA 2.2%. So all these economies which are ranking above us, which have been ranking above us for some in the immediate past or even now, they are all growing at very low rates. And India 4.1% in spite of the slowdown and negative growth in 2020, and China still ahead of India. Now, what about other countries? There are many other countries, larger, relatively large, smaller economies. Pakistan has been growing during this period 18 to 22, 3.5%. Niger, 5%. Vietnam, 5.2%. Tanzania, 5.7%. Bangladesh. Bangladesh is an emerging miracle economy, 6.2%. We all know that Bangladesh is just from a least developed country, it is being upgraded to developing country, and it is growing much faster than India, and it's a large economy with large population, and their single-minded focus is on economic development. Rwanda, Ireland, you see Iraq, Guyana, Libya, they have grown substantially basically because of the oil boom, one reason, and second because they have been they are remaining unexploited resources, and so that is one reason. Now another, I think I should not go on and on these aspects, so I think I will conclude here and we'll come back with uh, another talk later sometime, especially related to India's trade policy and India's performance on the trade front. Thank you very much.
After listening to the talk of Mr. Augustine Peter, our beloved member and former head of the economics department, St. Thomas College Palai, Professor Matthew Sir has some words.
Mr. Augustine Peter, who was in the Indian Economic Service, was Director of Foreign Trade, Chairperson of Competition Commission, is now a practicing lawyer in the Supreme Court of India. He was an alumnus and the college union chairman of St.Thomas College Palai. He has delivered an illustrative and illuminative discourse on the recent development of the Indian economy on the background of the pandemic. Using GDP as the index of economic development, he narrates the present state of the Indian economy and compares its relative position with other countries, both developed and developing. Quite recently, India attained 5th place with a quantum of GDP, falling behind US, China, Japan and Germany, and relegating UK to the 6th rank. Though it appears to be a remarkable achievement, in terms of per capita income, our position is abysmally low. Our per capita income is US $2,677 compared to American per capita income of $69,288 and Chinese per capita income of $12,566. Mr. Augustine Peter did an interesting comparison of the growth stories of both India and China. India became independent in 1947 and China became communist in 1949. Up until the 1980s, the GDP and per capita income growth of these two Asian neighbors were almost at par with each other. By mid-80s, Rajiv Gandhi started the deregulation of the Indian economy, and in 1991, Dr. Manmohan Singh under Narasimha Rao introduced the new economic policy. India was a drowsy elephant, moving at the Hindu rate of growth. Up to 1978, China was a slumbering dragon. She was experimenting the Great Leap Forward, 1958-60, and the Cultural Revolution, 1966-67, under their great helmsman Mao Zedong. Under the paramount leader Deng Xiaoping, China opened her economy in 1978 with Chinese characteristics. By 1996, China became a 1 trillion economy. India reached that coveted position only in 2006. At present, Chinese GDP is more than 5 times to that of India's. Mr. Augustine Peter has left over the strength and weakness of the Indian economy to ponder. I, Professor P.S. Matthew Powers, as a member of Safalam 55 plus Pala, express my sincere appreciation to your talk. Thank you.